Welcome to today's explainer. Let's just jump right into a mystery that is probably playing out in your living room right now. Imagine a kid. We'll call her Maya. Now, Maya is super smart. She's incredibly curious, but the second it's time to sit down and actually learn in a structured way, everything just kind of falls apart. Today, we're diving into the hidden difference between being intelligent and actually having the ability to learn. It's a total paradigm shift, and honestly, it's going to completely change how you look at your kid's brain.
You know exactly the Maya I'm talking about. At dinner, she's dazzling. She knows exactly how volcanoes form, she can recount every single detail of a movie she saw like 3 weeks ago, and she is solving logic puzzles in her head way faster than you or I can. But put a simple 20-minute math worksheet in front of her, or ask her to read a chapter for school, it's like a switch just flips off. Suddenly, this bright, super engaged kid is staring at the ceiling, chewing her pencil to splinters, and making her, third trip to the bathroom in 20 minutes?
If you're a parent, I know you've run through the playbook. It is exhausting. You try rewards, you try consequences, you break out the timers, you issue the empty threats, you try hovering right next to her, and then you try backing off and leaving her completely alone. You ban screens, you add more structure, but the result? It's always exactly the same. Nothing sticks. It is literally so frustrating. So naturally, after trying literally everything, you start asking yourself that one question that just terrifies every parent. Is something wrong with my kid? Is there some deeper issue going on here? Well, I want you to take a deep breath, because here is the absolute truth to take away from this explainer. There is absolutely nothing wrong with your child, but there might be everything wrong with what we think learning actually requires.
Part 1. The Intelligence Trap. Rethinking what drives learning.
For generations, we've all kind of just bought into this idea that intelligence is the ultimate engine of learning, right? Like, smart kids learn, and kids who struggle just aren't smart enough. It's so deeply baked into how we grade and test our kids that we don't even question it. But science did. Way back in 1972, a Stanford psychologist named Walter Mischel ran this now legendary experiment. Picture this. He puts a single marshmallow in front of a 4-year-old and says, "You can eat this right now, or wait 15 minutes and I'll give you 2. Then he walks out of the room. Some kids devoured it instantly. Others agonized, completely squirmed around, but managed to wait the full 15 minutes. But the real kicker, it's what happened in the 80s and 90s when researchers tracked these exact same kids into adulthood.
Fast forward a few decades, and they uncover this shocking plot twist. The kids who delayed gratification, the ones who actually held out for those 15 minutes, they completely outperformed the kids who ate the marshmallow right away. And I don't just mean by a little bit. We're talking across all major life metrics. They had way better outcomes in school, they crushed it in their careers, had better relationships, and even had better overall health. Crazy, right?
So here's the absolute crucial takeaway. The children who waited, they weren't necessarily the smartest kids in the room. They were just the ones with the strongest self-regulation. This was a massive, massive paradigm shift. I mean, it was the very first real crack in this long-held myth that high intelligence just automatically guarantees learning and success.
Part 2. Decoding executive function. What learning actually requires.
Okay, so enter developmental psychologist Adele Diamond. She spent decades essentially mapping out exactly what the brain needs to learn effectively. And what she found was the true missing link. It's something called executive function. Simply put, it is the cognitive system that lets a child pause, adapt, and actually process information. But here is the most important thing you need to hear today. Executive function is built through specific experiences. It's not some genetic destiny you're locked into at birth. It is built.
Diamond actually breaks executive function down into 3 core skills. First up, you have self-control. That's the ability to resist the pull of distraction when, say, a math worksheet gets really boring. Second is working memory. This is basically holding information in your brain while you're actively doing something with it, like remembering the first half of a really long sentence by the time you finally reach the end without losing your train of thought. And third, cognitive flexibility. This is your ability to shift gears, to look at a problem from a completely different angle when your first attempt just isn't working out. Together, these 3 skills are what actually determine if a kid can sit down and absorb what's in front of them. Part 3. The engine and the wheel. Why bright children struggle. You have to realize that intelligence and executive function are totally separate systems in the brain. Think of intelligence like a massive, powerful car engine. You can have this exceptional memory, endless curiosity, super advanced reasoning, but executive function, that's the steering wheel. And let's be real, a powerful engine with absolutely no steering wheel doesn't get you anywhere useful. It just goes really, really fast in totally random directions.
And that brings us right back to Maya. She is brilliant at everything except sitting still and doing the actual work. I'm sure you've heard a teacher say this before. Oh, if only she would just apply herself. We talk about applying yourself as if it's just a simple choice a kid makes, totally disconnected from how their brain is developing. But listen to me. It is not a choice, it's a skill. And just like learning to play the piano or, kicking a soccer ball, skills require dedicated, consistent practice. And here's the harsh reality of the problem we're facing today. Modern childhood is actively working against that exact practice. Think about it. With passive entertainment, instant loot boxes and video games, just constant digital stimulation, kids are getting practically zero practice in the exact skills that learning requires. Waiting, sustaining focus, pushing through sheer boredom, shifting from task to task. These are literally the muscles of learning, and right now for millions of kids, those muscles are going completely unexercised.
Part 4. Building the Learning Muscles. The Brain Building Toolkit.
Okay, enough doom and gloom. Here's the incredibly good news. The magic number is 10. See, the brain stays plastic and adaptable well into adolescence, which means you can absolutely build executive function right at home. Research actually shows that just 10 minutes a day, just 10 minutes of the right activities compounds over the months into huge, measurable gains in self-control and working memory.
So what exactly are those activities? Well, the research points to 4 highly practical, totally free tools that you can start using today. First up, open-ended play. Unstructured play where your kid makes up the rules and just has to navigate being bored without you stepping in, that is honestly one of the most powerful executive function builders on the planet. Second, back and forth conversation. And I don't mean barking instructions at them, I mean real conversation where you ask, hey, what do you think is going to happen next? And then actually listen. It forces them to hold and organize their thoughts. Third, reading aloud together. This is like the original focus training tool. Pausing, asking questions, following a long complex story, it seriously builds sustained attention. And fourth, structured waiting. Structured waiting is arguably the most direct exercise you have in your parental toolkit. It's basically about intentionally baking tiny moments of waiting into your daily life. Like, we all finish dinner before anyone gets dessert, or just making them wait 60 seconds before you respond to an impulse. Think of these like reps in a gym. Every successful moment of waiting is one repetition for that self-control muscle. And with consistent practice, a kid who could only sit still for 5 minutes, suddenly they can sit for 10, then 15, then 20.
And when you start seeing those massive improvements in their focus and their follow-through, you have to remember, it's not because your kids suddenly got smarter overnight. It is purely because they became more regulated. They finally strengthened that steering wheel so they can actually guide that big, powerful engine of theirs. Because your child's intelligence, that was never in question. The question was always about whether they had the right tools to actually use that intelligence. We aren't going to build those tools by adding more academic pressure or forcing more tests or comparing them to the kid across the street. We build them through play, through real conversation, reading stories, and just a patient, everyday practice of waiting. The absolute smartest thing you can do for a smart kid isn't to push them harder. It's to build the solid foundation that lets all that intelligence actually land.
Which leaves us with one final vital question to ask ourselves. Does your child's brain have the tools it needs to use its intelligence? Every kid deserves to be understood, not just tested. So if this explainer changed the way you look at learning today, take these habits and run with them. Start practicing those 10 minutes of play and structured waiting. And hey, share this with another parent who might be pulling their hair out over the exact same stuff. Thank you so much for joining me today.